But one thing I want to show you quickly, in case you haven't discovered it, is how to find more information about all of these courses. And again, some of the courses listed in this guide are Columbia courses, so it can depend on the department. Another way in which you're going to be getting to know multiple identities as a Barnard student is that some departments at Barnard and Columbia work very closely together. There's a counterpart to each academic program and department, generally speaking, on each side of the street, right? We have an English department at Barnard, there's an English department at Columbia. We have a chemistry department at Barnard, there's a chemistry department at Columbia, and so on and so on. Sometimes those departments work very closely together. They plan their curriculum together, they alternate which class is being taught by a Barnard or a Columbia professor at any given time, and so I will have access to those courses for summer placement simply because they know the Barnard system. We've worked with them to figure out which classes are available. Sometimes with the counterparts on either side of the street, Broadway is like the Grand Canyon. You know, they sort of wave collegially, but they don't necessarily plan much together. They have their own curriculum, their own classes of their own professors teach. You as a student will have access to either one and the offerings of both. But it will be up to you often to navigate and to figure out who to talk to at the Columbia department to find out the most information. So I want to show you how to find information about classes on both sides of the street, and just to make sure you know where to find a little bit more description. And I'm going back to the first year guide because I think it's the easiest place to go back to. I'm scrolling down to where we saw those different links. And one of the first links under the Barnard area is the Barnard Course Catalog Online. And this is something that many of you have probably explored when you were thinking about Barnard, applying to Barnard, since you've been accepted to Barnard. If you look under Courses of Instruction, you will then see listed on the left-hand side the different departments and programs at Barnard. And if you were to go into one, say Art History, you will then see a series of tabs across the top. And the first tab, which will be the default, will be Department Information. You can see the professors, you can see some of the mission of the department, you can see some of the learning objectives of what the department wants to impart. If you click on Requirements, you're going to see a description of what it would be like to major in that area, and if applicable to minor in that area. Not every department or program has a minor option, but they generally have a major option, and this will give you a sense of that big issue we talked about whether or not you would want to start earlier or later, if there's something you really should try to take first semester or not. And then under Courses, you will see all the courses that are typically offered by the department, not necessarily just the ones for the fall. And one thing that I would point to, because we don't necessarily highlight this in the first year guide, but you'll see, for example, this first course is BC 1001 and it has an X. An X indicates that it's offered in the fall. You look down here, Introduction to Art History 2, it has a Y next to it, that indicates that it's offered in the spring. So if you were to scroll down, you could see some of the many, many courses, including, and you'll see that they go higher and higher in number, as we talked about as you scroll down the page, as they get more and more advanced. We had mentioned earlier first year seminar, and I said that I don't have a specific list of the courses for spring 2013, but if you were to go to the first year seminar department, look under courses and look for the ones that have a Y next to them, then it'll give you a sense of what may very well be taught in the spring. Those are some of the Reinventing Literary Histories, Reacting to the Past is definitely offered. There's Crisis of Authority, which is offered in the fall, which Mevish took. But here's a class, Culture, Ethics, and Economics, which was taught this past spring. So it can give you a sense of what might be offered. Then going back to the blog, going back down to where the links are, if you go under the Columbia area, I've designated it as a course catalog just to show the consistency of what they're about, but the Columbia actually calls it the bulletin. And if you click on that, it will take you to their version of their online catalog. And again, you can look under their departments of instructions. If we wanted to look at their art history department, you can pull that up if it decides to cooperate. And then you'll see similar tabs across the top. And I do want to emphasize that the department information can be useful to you. The course listings can be useful to you in the same way in terms of showing you a short description of what's covered. But when you see the other tabs, undergraduate requirements and major advising, just remember that this is the Columbia Bulletin, so this is what applies to Columbia College students. Barnard students must major in a Barnard department or program with a Barnard faculty member. Now, if there's something that's happening at Columbia that you'd like to follow, there are ways of petitioning for a special major, a combined major. There are certainly ways of accommodating things that you find interesting at Columbia that don't necessarily have a counterpart at Barnard, although many of them do. So we can talk with you about that as you move forward. But I just want you to be careful about what you're seeing in the Columbia Bulletin because it may not apply exactly to you and what you're doing. So that's how you can find information about classes. So just a few last words about what's going to happen from here. I mentioned how the lottery process will work. I mentioned that I will review all of the programs individually, and then you will receive your preliminary course schedule shortly before orientation. The week, probably 1 week before orientation, you'll get a chance to see the classes you've been placed in, what your schedule is like, but that's not the end of it. That is the first step in terms of finalizing your course schedule. In that schedule, the one thing that will need to remain fixed is that first year foundation course, whether it's first year English or first year seminar, because we'll have placed all of you, you'll be filled in those 16 student classes, and so there won't really be space to move people around. So that will need to remain fixed, but everything else can be tweaked. Some people might change one class, some people might change a couple classes. You don't need to change anything if you have a course schedule that turns out to be satisfying for you. It can be great to just get started. You're going to have a lot of work ahead of you. A lot of classes will assign things immediately after the first class meeting. So it's great to just get started on that and not have to worry. But you will be able to consider other classes. So I want to turn to Nevish and have her describe for you the first week of classes and how that will inform your decisions and how you will be able to make changes if necessary.
Yeah, so we've talked about orientation, and now you're finally in your first week of classes, and you're finally seeing those 3-sentence descriptions come to life in the classroom setting. And sometimes it's exactly how you imagined it when you first put it on your advanced program, and sometimes you're sitting there wide-eyed going, I don't think I can do this, or this is not what I signed up for. And that's perfectly fine. That's why we have this program filing period during the 2 weeks of September so that you can tweak your program, you can change it, and it's what students affectionately refer to as a shopping period. But you really can't let your professors hear you saying that because they really don't like that term. They don't like you referring to their courses like grocery stores. So it's something to think about, the idea of sitting in other classes, seeing if you like them, but I find it a bit of an apprehensive kind of way of looking at the first couple of weeks of classes because the professors don't consider it a shopping period. So they're still teaching their material, they're still assigning readings and expecting you to do them. So sitting in 20 different classes and not knowing which 4 you're going to choose by the end of the 2 weeks might be a bit of a problem for you because you'll be 2 weeks behind. That said, there are a couple of ways for you to have a sense of what the class is going to entail before you actually sit in class on the first day. And a very important part is actually your professors, because they'll be a big resource, and sometimes the way a professor teaches a particular course might be different than the way another professor might teach the same exact course. So a good way of finding out more information is to actually go to department websites and to look at the list of professors, and they'll have a faculty directory, and it'll refer you to professors in the department and their email addresses. For most of the courses that are up there on the course catalog and the Columbia Bulletin, you already have the professors assigned to those classes. So you can definitely go online and find a professor and just email them and ask, and you will always be surprised by how forthcoming they are in terms of information. You can ask them anything about how the class is set up, what their teaching style is in terms of how they assign readings, and you can even make it more personal, asking how you think you should approach it as a first-year student. If you're not sure about a particular course, you don't know who's teaching it, you can always email the department chair. This is a tried and true way. I do it, my friends do it, and you'd be surprised by how much information professors are willing to give to prospective students. So it's definitely something to consider.
And I will add a caution that not every faculty member and not every department chair is as available in the summer as they are during orientation and during the semester. It's worth trying, but you might want to get a list of professors and know that you're going to visit their office hours during orientation or the first week of classes too. Certainly people are very available during the first few weeks of classes as they're helping people find their enrollments and get settled. So you will work with your advisor, work with me, work with all of us to find the right fit for you, make sure you have a satisfying program. We'll help you get moved if you need to and help you get settled, and then you will kick off the semester and just get buried with work and busy plans and clubs and all kinds of things. And again, as I mentioned, I will be then meeting with first years and kind of helping you walk through what those different weeks are like and how the rhythm of the semester works, and helping you get settled into that, as will your academic advisor. So just one last message is about the first year blog, and hoping that you will keep track of it and keep in touch with us during the course of the summer. As we mentioned, we are here to answer questions, and there are going to be posts to the blog, certainly as we lead up to the week of July where you're putting forth your submissions. We're going to continue to have posts like the ones this week that go into some details, some of which we've shared with you here today, some of which may add to some of what we've said based on frequently asked questions or other kinds of things. So please keep an eye on it. Immediately, I am going to continue to post opportunities that you may need to apply for during the course of the summer if you're interested in particular kinds of classes. And you've seen in the first year guide, it says see first year blog for details. Keep an eye, because those will be coming up soon. And then as the summer goes along, even after the submission process, we're going to keep putting up some information on the first year blog, just so that you can, again, get to know more and more about Barnard, become oriented to different parts of Barnard, and get some pieces of advice that you might want to think about before you actually arrive on campus. Some of that may be about the other offices. Meet the offices is what I'll label certain posts that are about different student services offices. And Mevish will be having her own sort of column of posts called Student Side that will give you her perspective on, some of it will have to do with courses, it might have to do with how to approach buying books, or how to approach figuring out how to handle your reading load or something like that. And some of it may be just fun facts about what top 5 things to bring to you for the semester or something like that. So even later in the summer, I hope you'll keep an eye on the blog just for information. So that has been a heck of a lot of information for you today. I so appreciate your patience, and I know that we've run far past time, so thank you so much. And if you have questions, please feel free to come on up now. Thank you.